Hello everybody, my name is Abeto Chesabal and I am a sophomore at FIU. I am currently majoring in exceptional student education, and my personal educational goals include graduating with my bachelor's and continuing my education into my master's. As for why I took this course, I took it because I would like to be a teacher and I'm not planning on moving anytime soon. And here in Dade County, we have a large variety of cultures and ethnicities and things like that. So I want to be able to best equip myself with the tools that I'm going to need in order to help my future students succeed in their lives, not just academically, but in the future as well. And some of my interests include I love playing basketball, and I love playing video games, especially 2K, and I really like listening to rap music, especially that of J. Cole and Chance the Rapper and Childish Gambino. Next, I want to talk about the Nieto readings and the important themes that I thought were the most important. And there was three. The first one is when she emphasizes the importance of knowing yourself and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. Part of knowing your weaknesses is in attacking your misconceptions and preconceptions that you may have of certain groups of people and combating them and attacking them head on. Because in doing that and in reflecting in that, you'll be able to reach your students better. You'll be able to teach them and help them succeed, not just in their academic life, but in their future life. So as hard as it may be, you need to take a look in the mirror and battle these things and really work them out, because that's the only way that you can evolve and become a better teacher. The second thing that I found was important was the idea that educators need to learn about their students, whether that be their background, their likes or dislikes, where they come from, the traditions and things that they do in their culture. It's important to go out of your way to find these things out and make a conscious effort, because that effort isn't wasted. The students will realize that you're trying to get to know them, and they'll be more willing to listen to you, to pay attention to your class, because they know that you care about them and their success. So I thought this was really important. And the last thing was, she says, in order to survive and grow, educators need to develop allies. And when I read this, I was like, no, that's true. It's like an NBA team. Not one person can do it alone. Michael Jordan didn't succeed by himself. He had a supporting cast, a group of people that helped him through the ups and downs. And it's more or less the same thing. If you develop this strong group of allies, this strong group of friends, you won't feel alone. You'll feel the support. You'll feel happy because there's other people going through the same things that you're going through. So I thought this was probably the most important thing, because it can be difficult at times, especially with teaching. That's such a difficult job, to go through all these things by yourself, to go through all these stress and all these, and you might hit a wall sometimes with a certain student, and maybe another teacher that you know, that you've become friends with, has dealt with that student before, and they already know the best methods to reach them. So in multilingualism as an asset, not a deficit, in that video, Nieto shares a story about how she was asked to teach the non-English kids, and she talks about how that has a negative connotation, and instead we should have an asset view. Instead of, oh, they're non-English speaking, no, they're Spanish speaking kids, and that has a more positive connotation to it and can go a long way in the success of those students. And again, with the asset view, she talks about how we should focus on the assets of the kids. This is part of the asset view, what they do have available to them. You shouldn't talk so much about whether or not they have a father, or if they have the best home life, or if they're poor. Like, you shouldn't talk about those things, because we have no control over those things in their life. And that's all about having the asset view. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that we should know as teachers. Notice our kids' strengths, not their weaknesses. In the video Expanding Teacher Self-Knowledge, Nieto talks about how teachers need to do their homework before they enter a classroom. What I mean by that is teachers need to know the backgrounds of their students before they walk into that classroom the first day of school. They should do their research about where the student comes from, their cultural background. Try to get as much information as you can, so that way when you do end up teaching those kids, you can do it in an effective manner. She also talks about knowing yourself before you walk into a classroom. Analyzing what misconceptions and preconceptions that you may have of a particular group of people that are gonna be in your class. She talks about this smog of racism that we all live in, and how when you're in the smog, you don't really see what's going on, and you act without knowing. But if you analyze yourself and you notice these things before you walk into that classroom, you can evolve as a person, so that when those kids walk into your classroom the first day, you don't treat them differently. You treat them with respect, and you treat them the same way you would treat any other child, and that'll maximize the success that those students will have in the future. The next thing I would like to talk about is the Florida Consent Decree of 1990. Before this decree, there was a clear lack of training in these teachers' ability to deal with emergent bilinguals. There was a lack of training. A lot of these teachers didn't even care if those students succeeded or not. It was a mess. And as a result, the parents started to notice this and became fearful that their kids were not receiving an meaningful education, which is what the Florida Consent Decree ensures. It ensures that emergent bilinguals have access to appropriate, meaningful education and academic programs that are federally funded. It also ensures that these students, by the time that they reach high school, that it's time for them to graduate, that they would have been taught all the skills needed for them to succeed and pass their graduation exams, as well as fulfill other graduation requirements. This was especially important because these students would finally be able to claim what's rightfully theirs, their education. Education is one of the most important things that you need to succeed in this country. So if you walk in blindfolded, essentially, and no one gives you any direction as to how to succeed, you can't expect to succeed. So that's what the Florida Consent Decree ensures to these students, that they're going to receive the education that they deserve, the education that they need in order to succeed not only in academics, but also in their future life. Once again, I would like to reiterate that as a result of this decree, none of these students received any extra rights. They just received the rights that again were rightfully theirs. So that's why the Florida Consent Decree is such a major document in the state of Florida. In chapter 1 of the book, the authors talk about the reason why they use the term emergent bilinguals. The main reason for this is because it focuses on the students' strengths rather than their weaknesses. It focuses on their potential to become bilingual or multilingual, which is a super valuable skill, especially in today's world. We see the asset view in this that Nieto was talking about in one of her videos, and it's more or less the same idea. By building a culture of positivity, even in these simple terms, just by doing that, our expectations as teachers and the expectations of the education board when they're making standardized tests becomes higher for these students, meaning that we'll have higher expectations for these students. We'll hold these students to a higher standard, which will in turn push those students to want to succeed because we believe that they can succeed, as opposed to the other terms such as English language learners, which focuses on their limitations rather than their strengths. In chapter 2, we learn about who the emergent bilinguals are. We learn everything about their demographic information, to the age distribution, to how they're designated and reclassified. And I believe that this is important because it all goes back to what Nieto was saying about doing your homework on the students that are going to be entering your classroom in the future, or who are going to be entering your classrooms this coming school year. If you don't do your homework on the students' cultures and backgrounds and make an effort to get to know who they are, you won't effectively be able to reach them. Thus, you won't be able to do your job as a teacher, which is to give them the students to not only succeed in their academic life, but again, as I've been saying throughout the whole video, in their future lives as well.